practice what I preach, and I preach it because all my heroes do it. So I absolutely do quote the melody. So what I'm going to do right now is exactly how I would practice if I was sitting in my studio at home. I would say, I want to practice doxy. So I'm going to first remind myself of the melody. Did it shock you? You expected? What did you expect? Bat, bat, bee, boo. Because I've been like really spoon feeding you that the whole first two A's, and then I was like, psych. I don't think people say that anymore. Oh, yeah, that's what I said. I don't know what that meant. Did that trick you? Were you interested? Were you also sitting there going, how is this going to resolve? What has he done? Made a mess of everything. And what did I do on the last day? I just gave you a nice big hug. It's okay. It's still doxy. Don't cry. It's a big baby. Did you feel that? Now, that was a pretty drastic example where I told you what I was going to do. I may or may not use that kind of overarching theme and have it go for 2 or 3 or 4 choruses. Sometimes what I'll do is take each chorus and get a little bit further and further away from the melody each subsequent chorus. Because you're more familiar with it, you start coming on that journey with me through my solo and follow me. Now I have the unique challenge as a drummer that 9 times out of 10 when I am improvising, I am unfortunately improvising by myself. I don't know why we do that in jazz. Everyone else gets help. You know, I sit there and help everyone. They're like, okay, you got it. Oh man, you guys suck. Like, I want to play with you too. Like, I love, in my band, I'll have my bass player walk under me soloing sometimes, or I'll have the whole room section play, or we'll have arrangements where they're playing hits so it highlights that I'm soloing over the form. But the point here is that I have all of these wonderful springboards to success in jazz improvisation. And I have them from a couple simple things. Knowing the form. Sorry, I hope it's a giddy. It's not. Knowing the form, knowing the melody. And I don't have that dry erase board up here. We don't need to move it, but I call this my jazz pyramid of success. It's real simple. Imagine this is a pyramid. It's good that I'm not drawing it because I have the art aptitude of my son, who is 1, and he somehow draws better than me. It's weird. He poops his pants all day and draws better than me. It's not fair. Man, poop your pants all day, that's a lot. Is that my Alzheimer's?
Is that my Alzheimer's?
The foundation of everything we do, and this is what I tell my students, is time. If you don't have good time, you can't progress along the timeline of 16 bars over and over and over and stay together. Everything is tied to time. our timeline in jazz is time. So that when we count a tune off, a 1, 2, 3, this has to be accurate, or everything else is going to crumble upon the top of it, okay? Foundation is time. So our foundation in jazz is?
Time.
That sucks. Our foundation in jazz is?
Time.
It's not just a magazine. Did?
Uh,
You guys know what a magazine is?
You do it.
You ever seen a magazine? That's the thing you're probably downloading. The next step is we need to know the melody, and it's assumed with, excuse me, I skipped a step. The next step is the form, and with the form is the harmony, because it's tied to the form. The chords are always going to progress in the same manner on each repetitive chorus. So time, form. So the next tier is form. Say it with me.
Form.
Okay, the form of Doxy is how many measures long?
16.
And it's an A, B, A. Right? That's the form. We must know it, or everything we're stacking upon it means nothing. We're building on confusion otherwise. Now, the next tier is melody. You must know the melody. The melody teaches us a lot of interesting things about this song. It highlights typically notes that are choices of each harmony, each chord that's progressing that the composer wanted to highlight, that found interesting. You pianists and guitarists and bass players, when you're comping through a tune, you want to take note of the melodic structure and what's highlighted so that you're not making it clash in your voicing. If you know their note is a certain note, why would you go against it in the top of your voicing? You don't want to just have one voicing for everything. It's a great way to start. They call that learning shell voicings. Any pianists and guitarists here? Raise your hand, you're a pianist and guitarist or bass. Awesome. Yeah, yeah. You know, there's a lot of great texts to start you out by learning shell voicings. It's kind of a generic way of framing a chord. It's a great way of learning because you need to learn the nuts and bolts of each chord. But when you get more experience with that, you want to constantly make good musical decisions in your comping that go nicely with the melody by observing the melody notes. By the way, if you're looking for great beginning texts, there's a great jazz pianist and educator named Dan Hurley, who has great books out there on learning how to comp. There's a specific piano book and then another one just on comping. There's a great overall jazz theory book, very simple, called The Jazz Language. It's like $5. And it's great. If you go to the University of North Texas and you take jazz fundamentals, you're going to use that book. And you can get it online. You can also email Dan. He has a website. He's not on Facebook anymore, but he's on danhurley.com. He spells Hurley weird. It's Haerle. And if you have questions, email him. He's very kind. He gives online lessons for free. He's retired now. He just plays piano and hangs out. He taught me while I was a student in North Texas, and I'm forever in debt for all the things he taught me. So you comping instrumentalists, it's a great place to go for information. So then melody, and then at the top of our pyramid, I always write the letter I, because I believe that stands for all of the things that are the real treasures of jazz. Improvisation, interplay, interaction. Those are the things that we really can't synthesize and experience until we're with other living, breathing human beings trying to play jazz music. But we often get caught up with that and forget about the foundation of what we're doing. Do we have good time? Do we know the form and the harmony like the back of our hand? Do we know the melody with effortless mastery so that then we can use all of these things to participate when we're improvising? And you rhythm section folk, don't forget that you're not only improvising when you are soloing. We are constantly improvising because we are accompanying someone who's spontaneously creating, who's composing on the spot, and we're helping them. That's our job as a rhythm section player, to always help encourage the soloist, to help reassure the soloist, to help inspire the soloist. Does that make sense? To go on a journey with the soloist. It's like a choose your own adventure. When I was a kid, we had these books called Choose Your Own Adventure. They're awesome. You know what a book is? You know what paper is? So I had all these books called Choose Your Own Adventure. They're these little short books, and you read like the first couple pages, and like, I don't know, I remember I had one like it was a space adventure or whatever. So you read about these kids that go up in space, and you're faced with a decision after page 3. And it's like, if you want to put your helmet on so that you don't suffocate, turn to page 5. If you want to, punch your friend in the face and steal his helmet, get a psychiatrist. Turn to page 7 or whatever. So the book was different theoretically every time you read it. And you make different decisions. Exactly what modern video games are based on. If you ever think about it, you're playing games now where they're non-linear. You make a decision here, it takes you on a quest chain here, vice versa. You get all this different stuff. You build like faction stuff. That's because people making video games now are my age, and we all grew up reading Choose Your Own Adventure books. And having serious lunchtime discussions about, I'm going to make a video game where you can punch your friend in the face and take his helmet. It's cool. We didn't have this conversation. We would have had season. So far, so good? Any questions so far? If you don't have a question, there's no way I'm the greatest expounder on jazz ever. You must have a question. And I'm really nice. I won't yell at you.